It's the lovers of beauty that change the world. I want to talk about the power of beauty today. And it's a message that I think is beauty is a message that is not highly valued by the masses, but it is valued by the artists. It is valued by the creators, by the creatives. And that's one reason why you're so important in this hour. I think, especially in the church, we've seen the arts and creativity kind of be relegated to maybe an extra thing, a side thing, if we have time. And, it's not been a central theme. And I think that there are reasons for that, because beauty can't be contained, and beauty does change the world. And beauty operates outside of the confines of man-made religion. So it can't be controlled. And the lovers of beauty won't be controlled. Right? So that can pose a issue for a system that depends on things being a certain way. It's okay if I push the envelope in here today. I was born to do it, so I'm going to do it. Those who were born in Zion will not be contained, and they won't be confined, and they will redefine and they will define culture. Some of you might know or be familiar with kind of one of the themes of my life and what I teach on is Zion and Zion people and the ways and the weapons of Zion and how that all works and looks and why and all of the things about that. And so I want to talk about the power of beauty, but I want to talk about the power of beauty and its intrinsic connection to Zion. Things have shifted in the earth. Can you feel it? There has been a shift, even just recently, major shift, and you can feel it. You can feel the energy of it in the earth. It is a major, major shift. And we are going headlong into a culmination. And that culmination looks like the manifestation of justice. Now, what is justice? My definition this is just my definition of justice I've used for years. The making of all of the wrong things right and all of the dark things light. Right? That's justice. So what was the greatest act of justice, the manifestation of the greatest act of justice on the earth? Cross, right? We'll come back to that. But things have shifted, and it's long been time for the creatives to rise up, for the creators to rise up. And, you know, and we work with creatives, and we're all about the creatives. And, you know, I talk about poetry. I've been a worship leader for a long time, and sort of pushing the envelope in those spaces. But the thing is, the message to creatives is actually a message to all creators, created in the image of the Creator, right? Because we're all creators. So essentially, we're all creatives. We talk about creatives proper, those who are making beauty. But creators, no matter what sector you're in, when you're moving in the realm of creativity, you're making beauty. I mean, this is hard for me, but like if you're an accountant, there's beauty there. Right? There's beauty there. I'm not a numbers person. Not my strength. But I can see beauty there. And the thing is, we like to separate things out, but the numbers are all in the makeup of what you see here. All of this. Numbers. Numbers, design, water, numbers, Fibonacci sequences, numbers, flowers, numbers. But with this shifting that's been happening in the earth, and not just this most recent shift that I have very much felt, I feel it every single day. Every single day, all day, I feel it, it grips me. But I've been calling for the creatives to rise. We've been calling, right, for years. The forerunners have been calling for the creatives to rise, that it's time, but why? And I hope that maybe today I can fill in some blanks for us and make your life make a little more sense. She's into it. She's on board. Okay. Why are creatives so important? Not only important, but crucial for the plan of God in the earth. Value for beauty, 1. Not many make beauty a priority, but Yahweh does. So you're not alone in what has seemed like your aloneness. You're not alone in what has seemed like your aloneness. Outside of the common rhythm and flow of the culture that doesn't value beauty, that lives in another matrix that we just can't live in. Yahweh leads with beauty. It's his first thought. It is all he is, all he ever will be. And he leads with that. It's his first word. Out of Zion, the perfection of beauty, God shines. Out of Zion, the perfection of beauty, God shines. So in order to connect with the perfection of beauty, We must connect with Zion. This is really, really important. In order to connect with the perfection of beauty, we must connect with Zion. Because where does the perfection of beauty come from? It comes out from Zion. If we're disconnected from Zion, we'll not have the ability to connect with the perfection of beauty. I want to do a quick thing. Somehow I was turning to right on a. No, it's okay. I'll run through this quick. How many of you are familiar with Hebrew, Paleo-Hebrew? I know some of you in here. I'm just going to, a few. How many of you not? Raise your hand high. Oh, okay, wow. Okay, this is going to be really fun. Okay. No, I'm going to run through it quick, but I probably want it tomorrow. Yeah. Okay, I'll do this quick. Paleo-Hebrew, very quickly, is the ancient pictorial representation of Hebrew. It's the ancient language. It was a pictorial language. Hebrew is outside of the confines of every other language. It exists in a realm entirely its own. Because it exists beyond a functional language, and its components exist beyond what they bring to the functional language. So as, in English, we ABC, they mean ABC, and that is all the meaning that they carry. They carry the meaning that is their function within the language, right? That's not the way it is with Hebrew. Hebrew lives. It lives, and it's conceptual, and it's light, and it is the very foundation and building blocks and sustenance and that which upholds and sustains everything that was and ever will be created. So real quick, I just broke down Zion in the Paleo-Hebrew. So each letter has a corresponding ancient picture that went with it, right? And there's meaning to those pictures. And this is just like one very surface layer of Hebrew. This is just like, no, this is the very beginning. It's so, so deep, right? So the components of Zion we see are Tzadi, Yod, Vav, Nun. And again, I am going to take this pretty quickly and not go too much in detail with this. We'll do a little more on Paleo tomorrow when I teach. Tzadi, it is the number for righteousness and humility. One of my very favorite letters. I say that about all of them, but Tzadi. Tzadi. And Yod. The Yod was here today. The Yod, the tiniest. Do we have it here? You've got it. You've got Yod. I can catch a Yod. The smallest letter. But it contains the fullness of Yahweh. It contains the expanse of the universe. It is the spark of all life. And isn't that just like the Lord, to make the smallest hold the expansive reality of who he is and all he created? I love these things. I know, this is not, and they're cedar, but they don't smell like the cedar that we have. They smell different. There's different. Anyway. All right. Yod. Vav. Connector. Vav is the connector. Vav is the nail. Yeah, okay. It's the nail. It's the connector. It connects for our purposes here, heaven to earth. But it is a connector. Noon is the letter for faithfulness, the emergence of life and the continuance of life. It is activity, it's movement, it's the seed of life. And so I put together this little paragraph based on the Paleo Hebrew of the letters that make up the word Zion or Zion. It is the city of righteousness and humility which holds the fullness of Yahweh and the expanse of the universe. It holds within its very nature a connector which fastens heaven to earth. It is perpetual emergence and continuance of life, and it is the very seed of life and the embodiment and expression of the faithfulness and perpetuity of the entirety of Yahweh. In a city. So just look at Zion for a minute. Just open the eyes of your heart and look at Zion. Awake, awake, daughters of Zion. Awake, awake. Shema Israel. So, Zion, now let's we're going to come back to Zion. We're going to tie this all together, but let's talk about beauty. Let's talk about the power of beauty. Yahweh leads with beauty. Now, this conversation about beauty, the conversation about beauty is not just for the creatives proper. It is a conversation that concerns all of us. And I always say that, yes, that the Lord is raising up an unprecedented move in creatives, but he's also raising up an unprecedented move of creativity. And that's the larger picture that we need to see here, is that, and what I aim to do here and in my next teaching is to blow open and break down the boundary lines of some terminology that we use within the creative world. Creatives being one of those terms. Because it was like Rachel was saying this morning, nobody's disqualified here. You don't paint, you don't whatever right now, well, it doesn't matter. And creativity is not confined, and creating is not confined to any of those ways or means. Poetry is the next one that I'll talk about this in the next time I talk with you all, but poetry and poets and poetic thought, I want to break that wide open because it needs to be broken open in the earth and brought out of the boundary lines that it's been placed in. So beauty is necessary. We've relegated it to an extra. If we have time, it's this superfluous thing over here. Maybe not us in this room, but largely in our cultures, it is not the thing which is central. Function is central. But we have a God who cares about form and function. And so, but beauty is central to him. It is central to him and how he operates. He is beauty. He's surrounded by beauty. He creates beauty. He values beauty. That's an understatement. And he uses beauty as a weapon and a tool. I always say the weapons of Zion are unassuming, but they win. They're things like shalom and beauty. And I'm excited to break this open with you all. And I don't even know what time it is or what time I started, because I'm going to... Okay. Here's the thing about beauty. Beauty changes the context. It fills the air with fragrance. It fills the air with awe-inspiring sounds from the very depths of a heart born in Zion. It changes everything. It changes everything. It disrupts man-made religion, like I said, because it exists entirely outside of it. It can't exist in it because it can't be confined. A really good example of this, that I love this example, is in Matthew, where Mary of Bethany breaks that alabaster and it's a really powerful thing that happens there, because what happens when you break even just a small vial of like essential oils or something? If it breaks on the ground, your entire house smells like that oil. So what happened there was an act of beauty which shifted the entire atmosphere, filled the house with tangible fragrance, and the religious could not stand it. It was this thing which made no sense to them. It was completely out of their box of understanding of what should have happened here. What should have happened with this really valuable thing that Mary had, that was probably her inheritance, that was probably all she had. It was worth a lot of money. And she chose to do this thing which made no sense to the religious world with it. But it was beautiful. And what did he say? He said, you don't get to talk to her badly about this, because she has done something for me to prepare me to do the greatest act of justice in the earth. Beauty precedes justice. And that's why it's so important in this time, in this hour. We're going to pull that apart in a minute. But actually, let's do it now. We'll just go with the flow. Psalm 45 says, My heart overflows with a beautiful theme. Now, in Genesis, when the Lord sits back and he looks at what he's created, the first thought that we hear from his heart, outside of the first thing that he speaks, outside of speaking, or I believe singing the universe into existence, the first words out of his mouth are, "It is good." But that word is tov, and it does mean good, but it also means beautiful. That's the thing about Hebrew. it's not one-dimensional. You can't nail it down to, it's not like Latin. Latin is here for scientific specificity. That's its function. That's what it's here for. That's not what Hebrew is here for. Hebrew is here to bring us into the circle, the cyclical way of thinking rather than the linear way of thinking. So he sits back and he says, "It is beautiful." That's the first thought that we hear from him. He leads with beauty. It's his first word. So Psalm 45. My heart overflows with a beautiful theme. I recite my composition to the king. Goes on to say, let me get to it here so I don't. And David is, or the psalmist is, effusively talking about beauty, the beauty, and my tongue is the pen of a ready writer, and in this realm, in this place of beauty. But something happens in this psalm. It changes direction very quickly. Talks, you're the fairest of the sons of men, and grace is poured upon your lips. Therefore God has blessed you forever. And then, like this, it switches. We're in the beauty realm, and then all of the sudden, it's gird your sword on your thigh, O mighty one, and ride triumphantly for truth and justice and righteousness. What in the world? Your throne is forever and ever, and the scepter of your kingdom is a scepter of uprightness, and you love righteousness and hate wickedness. Therefore, God, your God, has anointed you with the oil of gladness beyond your companions. Your robes are fragrant with myrrh and aloes and cassia. From ivory palaces, stringed instruments make you glad. I mean, it's talking about all the righteousness, the justice, the gird your sword on your thigh, O mighty one, and ride triumphantly. This after my heart overflows with a beautiful theme. You are fairer than the sons of men. What in the world is this? Then we go over to Psalm 50. Out of Zion, the perfection of beauty, God shines. And then something happens in this psalm very quickly. It starts, the mighty one, the Lord, the God of all the earth, speaks and summons the earth from the rising of the sun to its setting. Out of Zion, the perfection of beauty, God shines forth. And then it switches just like that. Our God comes, he does not keep silence. Before him is a devouring fire, and around him a mighty tempest. He calls to the heavens above and the earth that he may judge his people. And it just goes on and on and on about righteousness, justice, all of this. So what do we see here? We see that beauty precedes justice. There's something about beauty that makes a way for justice in the earth. We must have beauty for the establishment of justice. And that's what we saw with Mary. Right? She does this thing. The house is filled with this beautiful fragrance. Religion got all upset about it. And Yeshua says, again, you don't get to do that, because here's what she's done. She's prepared me for my burial. She's prepared me for that which is to come, which is, again, the greatest manifestation in the earth, because he was slain before the foundations of the world were laid. But in the earth, the greatest manifestation of justice, the cross. And we see that beauty out of his own mouth. He says, no, this had to happen. And she will be remembered for it. Beauty is not a side thing for the Lord. There's a lot more to that. I don't want to minimize that story just for my point, but that is my point, is that we see this here. Where you start your journey is important. Your first word is really important. And people choose a lot of first words, and sometimes they choose a first word and they have to take it back later. Or sometimes it becomes like a compass that's slightly off, and now their first word has brought them all the way over here and they meant to be here. There's a quote I'm going to read to you from Urs von Balthasar. It's a little tongue twister for me. I have to slow down and say it, especially with my Invisalign in. Like, speaking is hard. Thank you for that vote of confidence. I appreciate it. Beauty is the word which shall be our first. Beauty is the last thing which the thinking intellect dares to approach, since it only dances as an uncontained splendor around the double constellation of the true and the good, and their inseparable relation to one another. Beauty is the disinterested one, without which the ancient world refused to understand itself. I'm going to say that again. Beauty is the disinterested one, without which the ancient world refused to understand itself. A word which both imperceptibly and unmistakably has bid farewell to our new world, a world of interests, leaving it to its own avarice and sadness. No longer loved or fostered by religion, beauty is lifted from its face as a mask, and its absence exposes features on that face which threaten to become incomprehensible to man. We no longer dare to believe in beauty, and we make of it a mere appearance in order the more easily to dispose of it. Our situation today shows that beauty demands for itself at least as much courage and decision as do truth and goodness. And she will not allow herself to be separated and banned from her two sisters without taking them along with herself in an act of mysterious vengeance. We can be sure that whoever sneers at her name, as if she were the ornament of a bourgeois past, whether he admits it or not, can no longer pray and soon will no longer be able to love. I talk about the new and ancient way a lot. It's new to us, but it's ancient in the heart of the Lord. And it is those ways and weapons of Zion. It is that coming back. And beauty is one of the cornerstones of Zion. And he's calling us into the new and ancient way. Without which the ancient world refused to understand itself. Beyond beauty. The world is waiting for you. It's waiting for the creators, the creatives, the ones who make time for beauty, who stop and look, observe, the ones who care about a single leaf on the ground and what it means, and what the thoughts of the Lord are about that, because surely he has them. The other thing about beauty is that beauty is a protected place. It is a realm, but it is a protected place. David said, "One thing have I asked of the Lord, and this will I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold and gaze upon your beauty, the beauty of the Lord, and to meditate and inquire in his temple. For in the days of trouble he will hide me in his shelter. In the secret place of his tent he will hide me. He will set me high upon a rock, and now my head shall be lifted up above my enemies." The place of beholding and gazing on the beauty of the Lord is a protected place. Darkness doesn't follow you there. There really are ways to live above what they call the snake line. The highway of holiness, the way of wisdom. There is a path where no bird of prey knows. We need to live like that. We need to understand that we are not subject to. We are consumed by the beauty of the Lord. And those who walk on the ancient paths, they walk the life of abundance and blessing. The other thing about beauty is that there's an establishing power. There's an establishing quality and power to beauty. Psalm 90:17 says, "Let the beauty of the Lord our God be upon us, and establish the work of our hands." Yes, establish the work of our hands. So how is the work of our hands established? Let the beauty of the Lord our God be upon us and establish the work of our hands. I don't tell this story, I've only told it in public one other time, and I cut it out. I've done part of this teaching before. It's on YouTube. The whole thing is on my Patreon with this story in it. But I cut it out of YouTube because it's a personal story. I'm going to tell it to you, though. My grandpa on his deathbed. I loved my grandpa, adored him. Very brilliant man. I come from a long line of geniuses. Somehow I'm just me. But he was a doctor of education and very prestigious guy, and brilliant artist, actually. Taught art for a long time before he got his doctorate. But he loved me. We had a special relationship, but he did not understand the choices that I made in my life to not pursue academia. Because I was going to go into education and higher education and the whole thing, and he didn't. I didn't do it. I did ministry. I did what I'm doing now. I became a worship leader and a very weird one. Oh, okay. Well, I'll take that. Yeah, I mean, I came out of the gate. I mean, this is over 20 years ago. I came out of the gate doing spontaneous, like, not popular. I mean, I was forging into this thing over 20 years ago. No songless. Not an easy path, but worth every minute. But he didn't understand what I decided to do with my life, and that I wasn't going into, the thing that he so highly valued. And like I said, I come from a long line of educators and artists, but they're all very brilliant, lots of academia. So there was this thing, that it hurt my heart because I loved him so. I adored him, and he did me too, but there was this thing, like disappointment, that I felt. And on his deathbed, we were very blessed as a family that he actually had multiple days where he was still lucid, but he would he would have these heavenly encounters, right, and then come back. Now, he's Lutheran. Obviously, that didn't work for me either. But Lutheran, just very, so that was totally out of but, this is, what choice does he have? He's on his deathbed, right? The Lord's taking him up and showing him things. I watched him have these encounters. And he came back from one of those, and he motioned for me to come to his bedside. I was just sitting in the room. And I had my hand, I was holding his hand, and he looked at me, and he has tears in his eyes, and he said, "I understand now." That is literally all he had to, I knew exactly what the whole thing meant. He didn't have to explain it to me. I understand your life and what you chose. I've seen the reality. And I've come back to tell you that I understand. Now, some of his last words on his deathbed were this. Looks at me and says, "Make beauty with your hands for the long-awaited day of the glory of the Lord." So you talk about beauty. He's having these encounters, and this is the thing he comes back talking about. Make beauty with your hands for the long-awaited day of the glory of the Lord. Beauty matters. It's what the Lord brought him up to show him. It's what you can't help but know when you're in those realms. That beauty is the Lord's first word, not his last. Not a side thing. Beauty is a resonant frequency of Zion. So let's tie it together. We're talking about Zion. And like draws like. That which is like is drawn into itself, right? I'm talking about resonant frequency of heavenly Zion existing in the earth, brewing in the earth, so that we see what happens here at the culmination when the New Jerusalem comes down from the heavenly places and is fused onto the earth. That which is like is drawn into itself. This is why it's so important for the artists to begin to awaken to Zion, come back to the ancient paths, and begin to resonate with the frequency of Zion, so that that resonant system is now brewing between earth and heaven. That thing that has been here since the beginning. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. Hashamayim, the heavens, the waters. Ve'et haaretz. Now, Hashemayim, the heavens, ve'aretz, or haaretz, the earth, but. Aretz is a word for the land of Israel. It is what it is called. Haaretz, commonly called Israel, is Haaretz. So, let's look at this. I wish I had. Okay, Hashemayim, ve'et, vav. Remember the connector? Vav, the connector from heaven to earth. Et, aleph, tav. What is et? You will see it in Scripture. What is it? What is the word? What is the function in the language? Well, scholars cannot tell you. They will tell you it is the sign of the direct object, but there is no translation. Who is the beginning and the end? Aleph is the first letter. Tav is the last. He is the Aleph and the Tav. You will never hear me saying he's the Alpha and Omega. I'm not Greek. I'm Hebrew and Jewish, so. Aleph, Tav. Vav means and. That's functional, one of its functional functions. Yeah, exactly. In the language, you put it in front of a word, it means and. So, we have the heavens, we have the connector. Who is the Aleph and the Tav? Yeshua. We have Yeshua in the middle of the heavens and the land of Israel, connecting. Now, we go back to what is Zion? the Zion has the in its very nature the connection from heaven to earth. But we see that the frequency of Zion down here, Jerusalem down here, Zion here, New Jerusalem up here, with the Vav and Yeshua in the middle holding it together, the frequency of that has been in the earth from the very beginning, and it is awakening now, so that there will be created this like draws, which is unto itself, what is like itself. The fusion of the New Jerusalem, the manifestation of it on the earth. Right? He was slain before the foundations of the earth, but the manifestation of that justice had to happen on the earth. The culmination must happen on the earth. It must. It will. And that is what we are going headlong into. And it's going to be the best. When that happens, as that happens, and we're already seeing it happen, that's part of the shift you're feeling. There will be such a cataclysm between light and darkness. But the Zion people are rising, and this is why it's important. Because we must. Now, we're just a beautiful group of creatives here. Small group. The remnant is always small. We don't have to be big to create resonant frequency in the earth. We do have to be committed. So, you see that you have a crucial role to play. This is not just about doing art. This is about seeing what your art is doing. This is not just us. And I don't mean just in a diminutive way, but it is not only us getting together as community in the creative realm, in the creative space. This is more than that. It is a calling back to, for those who have ears to hear and eyes to see, that there's a much bigger thing here at play. And the way that you are wired, and the way that you think, and the way that you love, and the way that you see the world. That the Lord communes with you in that place. And he so highly values you in that place for who you are and what you see. That is unlike the majority of the world. It's so, so important. You're so, so important. Like I can't, my heart cannot even contain or express to you the weight of what I feel on this, of your importance. Of Yeshua himself coming and saying, I've been the connector, and as I was in this world, so are you. So, Zion people, lovers of beauty, you are not in the Lord's heart relegated to the sidelines. You're the main show now.
Amen. Come on. Amen. Do it.
And the world may not recognize it and they may not ever know it, but you are. It's the ones with Zion in their heart, in whose heart are the pathways of Zion. It's the ones who love beauty. It's the ones who understand the ways and the weapons of Zion that are unassuming, but they do win. It's the ones who come back to the ancient path. You're so, so important. I want to really hope that you feel validated in that. I think for so long, creatives have, we just have felt alone or extra, misunderstood. Yeah. And the Lord's saying, I want to heal your hearts so that you can walk in power and understand who you are in the earth. Because you're really, really important.
Wow, thank you, Elisabeth. Give it up for Elisabeth. Thank you, Elisabeth. That was so weighty words and very beautiful. As are you.